The story begins in 1969, as the Vietnam War was drawing to a close. The American army had been ordered to capture a town, and amidst the chaos, a soldier named Devereaux was searching for his comrades through the torrential rain. Suddenly, he stumbled upon a horrifying scene: the lifeless bodies of civilians and soldiers, all with one ear missing. Shocked and confused, Devereaux continued his search for answers. It didn't take long before he realized the truth: one of his own comrades, Scott, had murdered them all. Driven to madness, Scott had taken the ears of his victims and fashioned them into a garland, wearing it around his neck as a grotesque trophy. When Devereaux reached Scott, he found him holding 2 civilians as prisoners. Devereaux tried to reason with him, explaining that the war was over and that he should let them go. However, enraged by this, Scott shot the boy on the spot. He then demanded that Devereaux shoot the girl to prove his loyalty. Devereaux refused outright, which only fueled Scott's anger. Determined to finish the job himself, Scott raised his weapon, but at that moment, Devereaux kicked him down and tried to escape with the girl. Just as they were running, Scott shot Devereaux in the leg, causing him to fall. Scott then threw a grenade at the girl, killing her instantly. Overcome with rage, Devereaux decided to confront Scott. Both men opened fire at each other at the same time, and both were fatally wounded. The next morning, when the U.S. Army arrived at the village, the commanding officer ordered all the bodies to be preserved in the snow. He also issued strict orders that no one should know about the incident. The story then shifts to the year 1992 in America, where terrorists have seized control of a building. They had already killed several people, and the bodies of police officers who had tried to intervene lay near their vehicles. The terrorists still held several hostages and were pressuring the government to meet their demands. Soon, police were ordered not to intervene. Orders were placed because the army was about to send its universal soldiers, and among them were Devereaux and Scott, who were now given new names. These soldiers were brought back to life by erasing their entire memory, and now they are largely identical. A crowd of people gathered near the site of the incident, including media reporters. Then TV reporter Veronica arrived, but she was a little late, which is why her boss fired her. On the other hand, the Universal soldiers jumped into the water and made their way to the terrorists. Soon after entering, Devereaux and Scott killed many of them. They soon reached the leader of the terrorists, but as soon as the terrorists saw the soldiers, they opened fire indiscriminately. One of the soldiers was injured and fell, but when the terrorists thought they had killed him, he got up again and shot the leader, as if the bullets had no effect on him. Scott and Devereaux also arrived and killed the remaining 2 terrorists. Seeing the hostages, Devereaux's old memories of the Vietnam War started coming back to him, after which he looked back at Scott. As a result, both of them froze for a moment and did not obey any further commands. During the interview, Veronica became suspicious of Colonel Perry, believing he was hiding something from the public. To save her job, she decided to follow Perry to get a sensational story. Meanwhile, in the command center, we learned that these soldiers had extraordinary powers to heal and were much stronger than humans. However, sometimes, because of their powers, their bodies would become very hot. To keep it under control, they were given a serum to suppress their old memories. Currently, the technical team was trying to find out why Devereaux had frozen and was asking him questions. When asked, he said he remembered the entire incident that had happened in Vietnam, and Scott also heard this. On the other hand, Veronica left her cameraman in the car and moved forward, picking up the camera herself. After reaching the base, she opened a box and found another one inside. She was surprised to see the injured soldier. At first, she thought the soldier was dead, but as soon as she started taking photos, the soldier suddenly got up, causing Veronica to become very scared. In her hurry, she accidentally set off the alarm and quickly ran to the car. By then, Perry had sent soldiers to catch them. They overturned the car and captured them, but when Perry ordered them to take the camera and let them go, Scott ignored the order and shot the cameraman. As a result, Devereaux's memory was triggered, and he once again pushed Scott to save the girl. He then ran toward the army vehicle with Veronica. Scott fired several shots at the vehicle from behind, but it did not stop until Perry ordered Devereaux to stop. At the sound of Perry's voice, Devereaux reverted to Universal Soldier mode, so Veronica removed the receiver from his ear and threw it away, after which Devereaux was able to think clearly. Meanwhile, Scott was calling Devereaux a traitor, which meant that he had also started regaining his memories. After Scott returned, the technicians wanted to stop the project because Scott had killed an innocent person, but Perry threatened them with jail. After being asked to keep their mouths shut, Perry ordered everyone to go after Devereaux and Veronica to prevent them from telling anyone the truth about the project. When the car ran out of petrol, Devereaux pushed it to the pump, but unfortunately, there was no petrol there, and none of their phones were working. After that, both of them decided to rent a room. Meanwhile, the Special Forces team was about to arrive, which is why Scott had already destroyed all the telephone lines. While watching TV in the room, Veronica was shocked to see that the government had blamed her for the murder of her cameraman. Suddenly, Devereaux's body started getting very hot. He then opened his shirt and stood in front of the AC. As soon as Veronica started leaving the room, Devereaux began following her, but then he suddenly collapsed on the ground. As soon as Veronica touched him, she realized his body was burning. She made Devereaux lie down in the bathtub and filled it with ice cubes, which helped calm his body down in a short time. By now, the Special Forces had arrived, but none of them knew where Devereaux and Veronica were. Suddenly, bullets started firing in the room, but Devereaux saved Veronica in time by making her lie down. He then began running through the walls of the rooms, one after another, surprising the other guests. Veronica believed they would be caught soon, but then Devereaux got an idea. When the Special Forces entered, they couldn't find them because Devereaux and Veronica had hidden under a couple's blanket. While leaving, they also stole the keys to the couple's car. As soon as they drove off, the Special Forces fired several shots at them, but somehow, they managed to escape. The next day, on the road, Veronica asked Devereaux many questions, which troubled him. Because he couldn't remember anything, they walked for some time before stopping at a gas station. Devereaux told the owner to wait outside while he went inside with Veronica. He quickly took off his clothes and asked Veronica to find the tracking device in his body. Now, with all his clothes off, Devereaux's poor Veronica, feeling shy, began searching for the tracker. Meanwhile, the owner was eavesdropping and felt they were doing something wrong. Eventually, Veronica found the tracker in Devereaux's leg, but not wanting to cause him pain, Devereaux cut his own leg. Afterward, Veronica wiped her hand. After some time, the Special Forces tracking them arrived and broke down the door, opening fire. However, it was a trick by Devereaux. He had placed his tracker in oil. As soon as the bullets were fired, a huge explosion occurred. As soon as the explosion happened, the technicians rushed to save their soldiers. Meanwhile, Veronica, Devereaux, and the gas station owner hid in the trunk of the car with ice. When they got the chance, Devereaux and Veronica jumped into the van, grabbed some files, and drove off. However, Scott, hiding in the back seat, started trying to strangle Devereaux, causing the car to lose control and crash into a corner. The van collided with a stone, causing Scott to be thrown out of the windshield. Perry decided to end the mission and ordered all the soldiers to get into the truck. However, Scott said that many of his memories had come back and shot Perry directly. He then went straight to the van, where the technicians were working on the soldiers. He went straight to the technicians, placed Perry's ear in front of them, and declared that he was now the captain of the entire project. When a technician tried to stop him, he shot him too. The others had no choice but to obey Scott or die. Afterward, he healed himself with more special injections, becoming stronger. For some reason, he made the same disturbing ear necklace again, but when his body started getting too hot, he went inside to cool down. As soon as they got the chance, the technicians increased the serum fourfold so that Scott would die when shot. However, when one technician went inside to administer the injection, Scott killed him by injecting him. Veronica and Devereaux stopped at a restaurant for dinner, where they both looked at the files. Devereaux didn't know anything about this new world, so Veronica ordered food for him and then went outside to make a call. As soon as Devereaux started eating, he enjoyed it so much that he kept eating one dish after another. When the waitress asked how he would pay the bill, he had no answer. The restaurant owner came over and, as he approached Devereaux, extended his hand to punch him. That's when Devereaux dodged him. Some other men in the restaurant attacked Devereaux, and within a few seconds, Devereaux made everyone miserable. That evening, Scott asked some people standing outside a bar about Devereaux and Veronica. When one man mocked him, Scott got angry and beat him in front of everyone. The others, frightened by the fight, gave a straightforward answer. Meanwhile, a technician inside the van handed a hand grenade to a soldier. Now, Scott had only one super soldier left besides him. Scott was angrily shouting at the common people living there when suddenly the police arrived, but Scott defeated them in a few seconds. The next day, with the help of leads found in the file, Devereaux and Veronica reached the Veterans Hospital, where they met Dr. Greger, the founder of this project. One glimpse of the doctor brought back Devereaux's entire memory. While Dr. Greger was telling them about his research, they heard about Perry's murder on the news. He also saw footage of the supermarket on the news, which Greger believed meant that Scott still felt the Vietnam War was not over. After this, Veronica suggested they should run this whole story on the news, but on the other hand, Devereaux just wanted to go back to his parents, so he got Veronica a bus ticket to Los Angeles. Veronica was on the bus. She pretended to climb but did not actually climb. But before Devereaux could do anything, both of them were surrounded by the police. After some time, they were being taken in a police bus when Scott started chasing them. He first hit a police car, pushing it off the road, and then started ramming his car into the bus again and again. He was also firing bullets continuously at the bus. Devereaux saved Veronica by making her lie down, but in all this, the driver was shot, which caused the balance of the bus to shake, and it suddenly veered off the road. Inside the van, Devereaux cut the seat, took out the iron part, and with its help, started trying to open the lock. Scott was relentless, smashing into the bus again and again. At one point, he threw a grenade inside, but Veronica managed to grab it just in time and toss it back out. Furious, Scott started hurling grenades one after another around the bus. Devereaux knew it was now or never. He took control of the steering wheel, grabbed his gun, and pushed Veronica out of the bus to safety. Scott rammed the bus toward the edge of a cliff, trying to send it into the ditch. At the last moment, Devereaux jumped out and fired a shot that hit Scott's partner. Both vehicles tumbled into the ditch in a massive explosion. Devereaux and Veronica managed to escape and headed straight to Devereaux's house, where he reunited with his parents after years. Later that evening, Veronica called some of her reporter friends for help. She got into her car, but something felt off. Her car keys were missing. It didn't take long to find out why. Scott, still alive, had taken them. Suddenly, the house plunged into darkness, and Scott's chilling scream echoed through the night. Devereaux grabbed his father's gun and stepped outside, only to find Scott holding Veronica hostage. A brutal fight broke out, but Scott had injected himself with strength enhancers and was far too powerful. He injected himself with another dose and began beating Devereaux mercilessly. Dragging him toward Veronica, Scott tried to shoot her, but the gun clicked. No bullets. As Veronica tried to escape, Scott threw a grenade, reminiscent of the chaos in Vietnam. Furious, Devereaux launched another attack but struggled to match Scott's strength. Then, an injection fell from Scott's pocket. Devereaux seized the opportunity, injected himself, and felt his strength surge. Now evenly matched, Devereaux unleashed a flurry of punches, driving Scott outside. In a final, brutal move, Devereaux threw Scott into a running harvester machine, ending the nightmare. With Scott gone, Devereaux checked on his parents and found them safe. He ran to Veronica and was relieved to see she was okay too. They hugged tightly, knowing the ordeal was finally over. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button.